Blimey, if that taxi's struggling to get through, I don't know how I'm going to get through. Yeah, breathe in, breathe in. Oh, it's tight, it's really tight. Oh. Howdy folks, so some of you may know that the Labour Party conference is in Brighton this weekend, which is obviously my hometown. So it only feels natural really that I do a video on Labour. There's the Grand Hotel. I'm sure Keir Starmer's just coming out of his nice union paid hotel suite. No, can't see him. But yeah, my thoughts on Labour at the moment. It ebbs and flows, you know. Sometimes I love what they're doing and sometimes I get insanely frustrated with them, and the important thing is we all know that the most important thing right now is just getting rid of this current government because they are insane, they're loonies, and Labour is really the only realistic way of doing this. And you know, I want grand change for this country, things like proportional representation and stuff like that, but I think Brexit obviously, and I think we need to be realistic and think that we need to start doing these things step by step. You know, and the first thing is to get the Tories out, and that has to be the first step. So we need a good Labour Party, and I just, like I say, it ebbs and flows. David Lammy was on Question Time last week, and he'd done an absolutely stellar job of bashing it to the Tories over Brexit. He'd done fantastic. Here's a little bit of it here.
What we're looking at is a winter of discontent. That's what we're looking at. We have shortages of staff, shortages of supplies and shortages of skills. Why has this happened? It's largely happened because the promises that your party made on Brexit, which have not been delivered. No. Where is the trade deal with the United States? Where is the trade deal with India? We haven't got one. Why haven't you invested in further education? Where are the night schools? What have you done about it? Of course we need to get on with the visa so that these people can come in. And it's not just HGVs. So to be clear, it's fruit pickers, it's caterers, so to be clear, it's people in concert halls. Right across this country there are shortages. You promised that immigration would come down, and you know that it will need to go up if we're to deal with these problems.
He done great, he done fantastic, but then later on in the you know, I'm thinking great, later on in the segment I'm like, I'm getting frustrated again because Labour seem to permanently just keep going on with this policy of not telling us what their policies are. I mean, they were talking about the recent cuts to universal credit and basically how we're going to pay for the pandemic, and this is what David Lammy had in response.
And it's coming alongside an increase, of course, in national insurance. Economists are predicting an inflation rise and certainly interest rates going up by next February. So this is mean, it's nasty, it's unnecessary, and there should have been a U-turn.
So the cost of it, keeping the cost of it there would be about £6 billion a year. So how would you suggest paying for that?
We said that we would replace universal credit and we wouldn't do this. We've also said
how would you pay for it? Whatever you replace it with, how are you going to find the money?
We are some way before an election. We will cost that election. We will not be going into a general election with uncosted proposals.
So you're just saying, don't know how we're going to pay for it, but we'll do it first.
No, I'm really clear. My job is to oppose this government, and particularly when it comes to the poorest people in our country, and particularly for my constituents. All Labour members, all Labour MPs agree on that. This is not up for debate. Sure. We should not be cutting universal credit by £20. I've said that we will cost the proposal when we get to the next general election. I guarantee it, Fiona.
I just don't get it. Why do they insist on just not divulging on what their policies would be? It's all well and good, you know, sticking it to the Tories, saying that they're doing wrong, but you don't hold any credibility unless you say what you do right. I mean, what's so wrong in just answering that question with, well, we'd be looking at a policy of not trying to tax the poorest in our country, but looking at ways that we can tax the more wealthier. what's wrong with just saying something like that? I understand that you don't want to get into the real nitty gritty of all the policies and every single little bit of costing that you'll do in your manifesto, but what's wrong with just suggesting that, you know, we'll be looking at other ways of trying to tax the rich rather than the poor? You know, the way that they answered that question, I can hear them in their droves. I can hear Labour sceptics in their drove watching that question time and going, oh, bloody Labour, so they ain't got a clue how to spend money. They're going to take it from that secret money tree. They ain't got a clue. I can hear them in their droves because you're not giving them anything to suggest otherwise. I mean, what are you expecting people that are sceptical of Labour to take from that interview? Are they supposed to go, yeah, good on Labour, they'll tell us in 4 years' time at the next election what they're going to do? Do you know what I mean? So how are you going to win people over? Because this is what you're fighting against every single day.
They call you a racist, they call you fascist, they tell you to take the knee, they tell you that you're a stupid chippy little oik that didn't know what you were voting for and that you ought to do it again until you get the right result. And they offer succour and support to those who don't wish your country well, until eventually the proud voters in Hartlepool just said, you know what, pet, get out, I've had enough of you, I'm trading you in for that blue model that I once thought was a little bit posh, but now I reckon they get me and they know what I'm about.
Keir Starmer is a decent guy, and I think he's quite accomplished, and I think he's quite intelligent. But once again, he's shown no political acumen, and this is a problem for our democracy.
The Labour Party are making absolutely no progress, are still a million miles away from winning the next election.
The Labour Party, at least in my opinion, still does not have that compelling, unifying, interesting message for the country, which it desperately needs.
Labour's Welsh Government turned the nation into something resembling a Marxist state.
This is what Labour are up against every single day. This is what Labour sceptics are being fed every single day. And it's not good enough just to say what the Conservatives are doing wrong. You need to say what you do right. And these question time appearances are really, really important. You might not think they are, but they are. The normal working people, they're busy working. They're putting their kids to school. They're busy. Yeah, they're not looking at Prime Minister's questions. They're not going to be watching the next Labour Party conference. This is where people's opinions are formed in these small little spots. Oh, they just called 15 minutes of question time here, or they called this little bit of GMTV news or whatever. This is where people's opinions are formed, and it's not good enough just to say, oh, well, you know, when the next election's up in 4 years' time, then maybe we'll give you some sort of clue of what sort of policies we put forward. It's not good enough, and the public's not going to form their opinion from in 4 years' time just before an election. It's not going to work, is it? If I was there, I'd be making it clear that we just saw in the segment back there that this ridiculous notion of Labour being a communist party, it needs to be stamped out, and it needs to be forcefully stamped out. You need to say with force, look, we're not a communist party. Is it really that Marxist to consider maybe when the country is in dire... Go on, mate, go on. I don't know where you're looking, mate. I'm right here. I'm stopped for you. You know, is it really such a Marxist opinion to think that when the country's in a dire need like we are right now, we've just suffered a pandemic, is it such a barbaric thing to think that, you know, maybe the wealthy might be able to just help out a little bit more with taxes rather than that poor single mum that's on universal credit? You know, maybe things like maybe slightly higher VAT maybe on luxury goods. You know, maybe they could just pay a little bit extra VAT on that Lamborghini that they want to buy, or that big private yacht. Would that be such an insane... You know, I'm not talking about a bloody communist government where we're taking over all industries. The wealthy can overwhelmingly still be the wealthiest, but why not just a little bit extra tax on that luxury second home? You know, would that be so barbaric to think about? And it's not communist, it's not. Why are they not stamping out this absolute nonsense? But instead they just deflect every single time they're asked about policy.
Will you nationalise the big 6 energy companies?
Well, the immediate problem with the energy companies is how we ensure the supply of energy through the winter and into next year, and to do that without raising the prices for working people.
So that is an immediate issue.
That is the immediate principle.
But I'm asking you a big principled question. Will you nationalise the big 6 energy companies, yes or no?
No.
No, you will not. This is what you said as part of your 10 pledges. Public services should be in public hands, not making profits for shareholders. Support common ownership of rail, mail, energy and winter. You promised that 18 months ago, and now you're saying no. Why?
I don't see nationalisation there. There is
what else does public hands mean?
There's a world. Well, public services should be in public hands, but when it comes to something like energy, we've got an immediate problem in the next few months that we've got to solve. And then when it comes to common ownership, I'm pragmatic about this. I do not agree with the argument that says we must be ideological. Look what happens.
So what does common ownership mean if it doesn't mean nationalisation?
Look what happens when we're ideological about this. Track and trace put into private sector, £37 billion, when we were arguing it'd be better in the public sector with local authorities. So I'd be pragmatic about it, and where common ownership is value for money for the taxpayer and delivers better services, then there should be common ownership.
Poor Ed Miliband believed you when you said that, and he was asked on Newsnight just the other day about this exactly, and he said, we're in favour of common ownership, absolutely. Wait for the conference, but Keir Starmer said in his leadership campaign he was in favour of public ownership. We haven't changed that commitment. Maybe we haven't, but you have.
And this is another great example of what I'm talking about. This was actually filmed over the weekend on the Andrew Marr show. You can see the Brighton West Pier in the background there, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. Labour are just so wishy-washy on their policies. Not even their leader or their MPs know what they're talking about. Starmer 1 minute is pro-nationalising the energy companies, and then 1 minute he's not. And his MPs, Ed Miliband, thought that they were going to announce it at a conference this weekend. There's no clear vision in the party. You know, if the folks in the party themselves don't even know their own policies, how are we supposed to know whether we're going to vote for them or not? This is something that Labour have got to sort out. They have to sort out. No one knows what they're about, maybe because they're still just so divided on what route that they're going to take. And they're not pleasing either half of the fence here. They're not pleasing the red wall northern voters, and they're not pleasing the young socialist voters. They're doing nothing. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch, because like I said at the beginning of the video, they obviously are our most likely way to get rid of the Tories. There's no other option really in the next 4 years. I don't know, what's your thoughts, guys? Am I wrong? Is there something that I'm missing here? Is there some big reason why they shouldn't be divulging in what their policies are this early? I don't know. Please let me know. As always, take care, guys.
You wanted that lager that I got for free. It hasn't cost you anything, doesn't matter where
Hey, hello.
So you now decide, because you've given me a free lager, that you can now say, oh, actually, I'm not, in the future, I'll just take your money, Steve, on a whim.